Welcome to podcast episode 4. I believe this is. This is episode 4 with my brother, Jakub Mysliwiec.
Good
I
work.
got it?
You got it.
All right. Yeah, it's easy to say Mysliwiec if you don't know, but it's a Polish origin. So the pronunciation is the way it is. And so it's Mysliwiec.
Yeah, you got it.
It's taken me years.
Only a
And
few.
Jacob and I go way back to 3 years ago, way back to a retreat that we had with a mastermind group we're a part of, and it's called Champion Development with Mike Chu, the owner and founder. And Jacob is an extraordinary individual. This is a guy that I look up to. He's my brother. He's a colleague. He is someone that I'm just like always in awe about, where I'm like, yeah, I want to be around this guy. This is a guy I want to be around because he attracts great energy and he also is just brilliant. Like, this guy is just about his development in every way, health, wealth, happiness, you name it. He is trying to find a way to get better at it. And so, Jacob, welcome to the podcast, brother. And I just want to give a little bit of a summary of, Jacob's past, right? Born and raised in Chicago, and he'll probably correct me on anything that I'm inaccurate on. So born and raised in the Chicago area, and he swam, big time swimmer in high school, pretty good at that. And then your brother, Seabass, who I'm going to have on this podcast at some point, was a district manager for Cutco, or was he a branch?
District.
He was district manager, and you had to go into Cutco, had to, because your brother needed you on the team. And so you joined Cutco reluctantly, as I remember you telling me, like, you didn't want to, you're resistant. And there's probably a lot of depth into how it happened, what happened, and how you became who you are now. But fast forward to today, what you started in 2018?
16.
2016, you started before me. That's crazy. And then fast forward to today, you are now one of the top district managers and district teams in the entire company. Your district team just crossed 1 million and like 16,000 this week, I assume. And we still have like 4 months left in the year to probably get like 1.5 million in total sales as your district team. You're basically like your own division manager at this point, with 6 development offices that you are also managing and in charge of and leading and coaching. Last summer, you did 415,000 just in the summer, in the 4-month summer span, and then more on top of that with your total business over 600K. And I think you were regarded as probably the number one manager in the whole entire company for last summer. Maybe not, I don't know if you like your sales total, but your PPR, which is productivity per rep, for those of you that don't know Cutco, was like 5,000 or like something like that. And so everyone that joined your team was just selling machines. And, we can talk a little bit more about leadership and leading representatives through sales, which is really not easy, especially the demographic that Cutco typically works with. And you spoke at the premier Cutco management event, the premier SLC Strategic Leadership Conference, where every single executive in the company, the CEO, all of the high-level managers, region managers, every single manager in the company and every executive comes into a place. This last year was in Houston, and Jacob got to speak in front of over 500, I think it was like 500 people, and all executives, the best of the best within the business, including all the CEOs and everyone involved there. And he crushed it. Gave probably the best talk, I would say. I'm biased though, because I love my boy Jacob. And he's just continued to explode and move forward. And he also has some things going on in terms of real estate investing, biohacking for his body and his mind. And, let me just say, Jacob is impressive. Jacob, is there anything that you just want to state or correct that I stated?
Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, I'd like for you to introduce me whenever I speak for training. This is great. I love it. But yeah, just a little bit of like filling in the gaps on some details. My parents, they were born in Poland, and they came here to the U.S. when my older brother Seabass was born, who I know he's going to be on this podcast down the road. And just growing up, I just kept hearing from my family, my grandpa, hey, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to take care of me when I'm older. And the reason they were sharing that with me is because we didn't grow up with a lot. When we came to America, as far as like my parents and my brother, when he was born here, we lived with my grandparents for the first, I'd say 10 years of their life. And then moving on to our own place, like just really kind of starting fresh in a position of like, all right, how do we break a lot of the generational financial kind of habits and things that we got to work through, especially, being first timers here in America. So growing up, I just heard a lot of like, Jacob, you're gonna be a doctor or a surgeon, like nonstop. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to school for this. I went to school for molecular biology. In 2016, I went to the U of I, the University of Illinois down at Urbana-Champaign. And I was on the pre-med track. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a cardiovascular surgeon. Like, this is my path. This is what I'm doing. And before I went into college that year, that freshman year, that's when I started Cutco. And my brother Seabass was like, yeah, Jacob, you should try out this job. Like, he knew that I just graduated. And I was like, all right, like, I'm kind of trying to just figure out where I want to be, what I want to do. And I was working as a lifeguard, and then I was a head lifeguard at the pool. I was like, all right, like, I'm good. I already have a job. I don't need another job right now. Like, I'm not interested. And he asked me like 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and I kept saying no, no, no. Keep in mind, the reason why I love that job was because I saw myself as a big introvert. I really didn't like talking to people. I didn't know how to talk to people, and people just knew me as the kid that like got good grades and swam fast. And that's why lifeguarding was fun for me, because I didn't really have to talk to others. And that's what I liked about it at the time. And I remember my brother was telling me, he's like, Jacob, there's no way you're going to be a successful doctor if you don't know how to communicate with people, don't know how to work with people. I was like, you know what? Like, you're right. What's the worst thing that can happen? Tried out the job, sold 10K in my first 10 days, and then sold 10K in SE2 the very next day. So it was like 10K in 10 days. And then the next 17 days was SE2. Sold another 10K in those 17 days. Sold another 6 grand before I went back to school. And that's when everything started to like change, as far as like, maybe I could do other things besides, study biology for my entire life and, go to school for medicine. But that was just a little bit of the first part. Yeah, I've grown a lot over the last several years, 2016 and 2024. I've been with Cutco Vector for 8 years now. A lot of growth in my life, personally, professionally, financially, physically, like all aspects. And I'm really grateful for all that. And just this last year, yeah, having I would say arguably it was my best year ever up until that point. Getting a chance to speak at SLC. We were the #1 new business office in the entire country for the summer. And that was off of my, like, a lot of changes. I was changing territories. My brother stepped away from the business to pursue real estate and his short-term rentals with Airbnb. So I took over his territory. So it was just a lot of changes happening. I was like, all right, like, I got to figure this out. So I was like, all right, after our island trip, which is where we spent a lot of time together, I was like, I'm going to do 75 hard, locked in. And that got me really in a really clear state of mind, clarity wise, goals wise, vision wise, for that summer. And that really just set us up really well. Yeah, 5,200 PPR, 415 new. We launched like 79 reps, so it wasn't a ton, but we just made sure everyone sold. Our no seller ratio was 10%. So for those that don't know what that means, it's 10% of the reps that I launched from training didn't sell anything, which is considered really good. And also 10% of our 10% of our reps that we launched also sold over 10K in their first 10 days at the same time. So something that we're really proud of. And now up to this point here, August 2024, we had grown our division, I guess our district team, from just the 4 offices to now 9. Add abs, that's 10. And it's been a pretty fun ride.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. It's cool to like watch the growth and seeing, meeting you in 2021 in Austin, Texas, and now seeing where you are. And it's like, dude, you are blazing a trail right now into greatness. Like, you're already there. Now you're just like continuing the ride through it. And what else are you balancing with also being a manager? Like, that's not your identity. Like, I know we've had conversations about this. It's very easy to get caught up in, this is my identity, this is who I am, I only do this. But you have your hands in many different pots. Like you were talking about some real estate and also a lot of biohacking. Like speak on that a little bit.
Sure. I love biohacking. Biohacking, for those that don't know, is essentially optimizing the human body in a very natural and holistic way. So things that you might be familiar with are, flotation, sensory deprivation tanks, or like cryotherapy, or ice baths, or just like infrared saunas, red light therapy, that kind of stuff. So I've got a big fascination towards that. The reason why is because I personally am a big believer in healing the body through natural and holistic means. Through my pursuit of what I was learning in college, I decided not to go to med school after I graduated in 2020. It was COVID. Virtual med school didn't sound too exciting, and I was like, like there's got to be better ways to like heal people and not put like a band-aid on a broken leg type of analogy, or just constantly giving people pills or surgeries and things that aren't really healing them fully. One of the things that could really heal people fully are like diet, sleep, nutrition, exercise, and mindfulness. And that's something that I'm a really big believer in. And just recently, especially I'd say since 2020, 2021, really big believer in just like meditation and the power of our mind and what we can really create in our own life, like in a physical way. The physical changes that can occur from a deep meditative state are really, really profound. But that's on the biohacking side. So my dream is to open up a biohacking facility where we optimize the energy, life, and performance of high performers. It's going to be kind of like a tier type of membership. You could get different benefits at every tier. We'll have a facility, world-class equipment, world-class restaurant, food, people. We'll have a podcast studio there. We'll bring guests in. We'll simplify the science for everybody. Just a lot of like the community that's going to be built through that. I'm just really, really excited about that. And one of the reasons I went out as a DM was to learn how to scale an organization in a way that is successful. So learning that right now as a district manager with my district team and making sure like each department or office is doing well. There's a lot of like parallels and correlations in that. But that's been cool. I also, do real estate investing with my older brother. He has his Airbnb short-term rentals business, and he's been really crushing it with that recently. And he's my guy. And whenever he needs like money or anything like that, I'm like, I've got this cash saved up. Like, let's go buy this next property. Let's go buy this. Let's go buy that. Oh, you need the loan? Like, I got you. And I love that he's kept it so tight knit because it's allowed us to really flourish and make decisions from a really abundant place. And just seeing him grow his business, and like my family is really involved with it. My mom does a lot of like the painting and decorating and staging. We've got my dad, he'll be the handyman. He'll like fix up anything that breaks at the Airbnbs. My little brother moves all the furniture. He's got his friends to help him out with it too. Our friend Olaf, he'll help find some of these spaces. So it's really cool to see how he's built the team and how we've scaled. I think we're at like, it's got to be more than last time I checked, it was like 34, 35 actual units. And I think it's more than that now. So real estate, health wise, relationships. I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend, Patty, for the last 8, almost 9 years.
We love that.
Yeah, Patty's awesome. And I was telling her before I jumped on this call, I was like, oh, I'm going to go see Carson. And she's like, oh, tell him I said hi. And yeah, she loves spending time with you, and your energy is always abundant, vibrant. Spending a lot of time in Ireland, and anyway, that she's awesome. She's in accounting, and she works for PwC corporate taxes.
Okay.
We live together downtown Chicago. Life's good, and yeah, I mean that's relationships and happiness. That's health and biohacking, and then that's real estate investing. I'm sure there's some other things. I've got a few hobbies. I love flying drones and just recording some drone content. I was just talking to Carson about the time I crashed my drone at a retreat the other day. And then I lost one of my first drones actually in Hawaii when we went on that Hawaii retreat. And we were going to go shark diving, like to swim with sharks. And the water was too murky. And I was like, you know what? Like, let me just fly my drone instead. It was really windy, flew my drone up, too windy. The wind smacked the drone against the boat and fell in the water. Sharks ate it up. So that was my first drone, and it's down with the sharks.
It's in a better place now. Let's just say. What, like, you've been doing a lot. You have had a lot of success these past few years. Like, that's the sweet stuff. Let's talk about the not so sweet stuff. Like, what has been the biggest challenge for you, or some of the biggest challenges, through growing your district, through, learning mindfulness? Like, what even got you into that? What were the things that, like, those pivotal moments where you're feeling down and you were like, boom, I know your mom went through a series of like really, really tough moments, but what are some of the challenges that you and your family had to go through, growing up not with the most abundant lifestyle, to now it seems like you guys are happy and thriving?
Totally. It's a great question. And immediately what comes to mind is just like my childhood and just growing up and being in a position where we didn't have a lot, hearing often from my parents, like, oh, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. It was tough because I just started to develop that mindset, like we can't afford things that we want. And it wasn't until Seabass started with Cutco where he started to like develop these new personal growth things. And he started like dressing nicer, his room was clean, like different things like that. And I was like, you know what, like this is unique. We've got something special going here. And that opened him up more to personal growth and personal development, opened me up to it as well. And then that opened us up into more of I would say the mindfulness space and meditation, and just knowing that there were other ways to grow and learn and develop and heal ourselves than just what we were used to. He started reading books on personal growth, personal development. Same with me. Our mom, back when we were kids, she had cancer, and she didn't tell us about it. And she just didn't want to. Her perspective was she didn't want to put the burden of that thought onto us as kids, because she didn't want that to affect us. So she just held it in, and she healed herself through it over a period of a few years. And she's always been the one that was always into like the how do I heal myself through natural and holistic ways. So never really, getting the chemotherapy or anything like that. She's like, all right, what detoxes, what cleanses, what can I do to like heal myself? Because everything on this earth is here for a reason. And if something is made in a lab or pharmaceutically, or if there's a machine, like, yes, we're grateful for all of the things that were created. But also at the same time, like we can also, heal ourselves. And so she started, after a few years in Cutco that my brother was in, she started to read Dr. Joe Dispenza. She read into Supernatural, just a lot of different books that allowed her to open up her mind to what else is possible. And I remember 2022 it was like right around Mother's Day. Me and my brother were home because we lived together at the time in downtown Chicago. And we came home to see her. And she's like, she looked a little down and was sad. And we're like, Mom, like, what's going on? She's like, yeah, I'm sick again. We're like, what do you mean again? And we're like, what do you mean, like sick? Like, like elaborate. And she's like, yeah, she ended up having two types of cancer, cervical and breast. And she was in a position where she felt like she was a burden sharing that with us. But like immediately my brother and I were like, no, Mom, like we're gonna get through this with you. Like what do you need from us? We started seeing her like a lot more frequently. I would journal about her often, and just like constant like empowerment. Like, you got this, Mom. Like, just keep doing the work, and the work with Dr. Joe Dispenza and healing herself. She's been on probably two handfuls of retreats now with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I've had a chance to go on one myself. February 2021, that was transformative. And at these retreats, you really find out like what this work can do. I've seen people, Carson, they've been in wheelchairs their whole life, couldn't walk. And after a week-long event, an advanced retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza, they're standing up for the first time. People are like seeing for the first time, they're hearing for the first time, and there was no like medicine or no like machine or anything. It was just all what their body did. They turned on certain genes, turned off certain genes, like different things that just started to click in their own minds. When you get into a deep meditative state, when you become nobody, nowhere, no time. I know we've talked about this before, but like as soon as you tap into this work at the same time, it's like the synchronicities. We call them downloads.
Downloads.
One of my favorite things to talk to Carson about is just like, when something happens or something that's just like maybe a little bit too much of a coincidence, like that's a download. And yeah, we'll text each other words like that. And it's just so
So
fun.
randomly, just like yeah, he'll just randomly text me, just have to download. I'm like, hell yeah. Like it's great because it just reminds me that that is out there. Sometimes it's easy to forget. Like, these coincidences in life are not coincidences at all. Like, everything is happening for us. We just have to really have faith in that.
Mm.
and believe in it. And so what was like, in a little more detail, like that first experience, what did you get out of it personally going to a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat?
Yeah. At first I was like, oh, I know how to do this. Like I've always like thought my way through things. And for the first time, and this was really hard for me, for the first time I had to like not think, which is really kind of difficult to do.
Yeah.
Especially being like a high achiever, high performer. Like, how am I going to think through this? How am I going to get like muscle
Problem
my
solve.
way, my physical? How can I physically like figure this out?
Mhm.
And it's actually really unique because you're supposed to let go of that. And it's the more you try to let go of it, the harder it is. So you just have to start just like thinking about something else and just getting into a deep meditative state. But first few days of the retreat, it was a week-long retreat. We were in Cancun, and I was like, "Oh, this is fun! Like this is easy. Like I could do this." And I would just like, I'd feel like I was meditating, but I was like, "No, like nothing's going on." And then I remember on like the third day, I was like next to my little brother. It was me, my little brother, my mom, and her brother, my uncle Mike, and me and my little brother are like by each other. My mom's like, she's kind of like pretty cool with Dr. Joe, so she'll like be by him, see my uncle. But we did like a 4 hour meditation one day, and out of nowhere there was like this cackling. It was like this like really like someone just started like, we thought they were laughing. Me and my little brother were just like, I heard him like giggling a little bit, so I was like, all right, like what's going on? Did Dr. Joe like do something funny? Like is he like dancing on the stage? Like what's going on? And then it went away after like 5-10 minutes, and we're like, okay, like we're back in it, whatever. And we went on our break for lunch, and we find my mom, and my mom's like, uh, did you guys know what happened? And we're like, no. And she's like, were you guys laughing? We're like, we weren't sure like what was going on. So like, yeah, we kind of thought it was funny. She's like, I was right next to the lady. She was having a huge cathartic release of energy, and it came out as laughter. And like she was convulsing. She was in like a really interesting type of like state where her body was healing itself by releasing a lot of things. It was releasing a lot of the things that were keeping her in an unhealthy state, in a really difficult state. And when she released that, it came out as laughter. And I was like, wow, like this is really interesting. And that started opening me up to like, whoa, like what else does this work do? And that's when you start to like get into the depths of like what we've been through as kids in childhood, and how that comes up, how that affects things. And I was like, wow, like this is really interesting. And my brother introduced me to one of his friends, and who's been to like 20 of the retreats at this point. And I was like, wow, like he was involved in one of the, he wasn't like, so he lost a lot of his friends at one of those like massive school shootings. And he has a testimonial video out on YouTube with Dr. Joe. His name is Zach. And you just search Zach Dr. Joe Dispenza testimonial. And he talked about how I got it like really in this deep depressive like state, and he just kept doing the work, kept doing the work, kept doing the work, and he got himself out of it without any, any other means than the meditation. And I was like, wow, like this guy's like real. Like I didn't realize that he was someone that was, and that he's living a beautiful life now. Like he's awesome. I love the guy. And just seeing him grow, it's been really cool. But just like those little experiences started to open my mind up to like, okay, what else is possible? What else is possible? What else is possible? And it's through those challenges that we found the beauty of like my
Mm.
mom healing herself. She healed herself from her own sickness, and it was I believe 3 months. And she's like, I remember we saw her again, and she's like, guys, it's gone. We're like, what? And it was just so beautiful to witness. And my mom's got this huge smile on her face, ear to ear. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, if she could do this, like we can literally do anything. And that's when I started to really just tap into like that unwavering faith, extra like the miracle equation, hell out. I was like, man, if my mom could do that, I could do anything. Like, what else can we accomplish? And that just started to unlock every area of our life to what we wanted to accomplish. And that's where I would say a big level got unlocked for us as a family and for myself.
So just a recap on that, like your mom, no medical treatment at all, strictly meditation and probably eating like the right food,
Detoxes, cleanses, like she was like really
all
hard.
natural. And she was cancer free in 3 months.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me like there'd be days where she would meditate for 10 hours.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, it's like, and just seeing her come out of those meditations, she's like so joyous. It's like not a care in the world. Like she, the way that Dr. Joe says, you become no one. nowhere, in no time, like no place. You become in a space of like there's nothing. And it's hard to explain, but once you really tap into that, those of you that have been there before, you're like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. But it's really cool.
Yeah, and so that kind of spiraled you into this track where you're like, I want to find out more of this. Because you said this is in 2022.
2021. That happened. So I went to the retreat in 2021. My mom had that sickness come back. The remission came back 2022 in May.
Okay. And then that's when you were already like, no, we're in this. We're going to help you through this. This is not a burden. Like, we love you. We're here for you. We will meditate with you. We'll do anything you want us to do. And we're going to love it. And this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool mindset to have. And so, fast forward to now, I'm sure you've developed a lot of different routines and different types of strategies on mindfulness, and you've learned a lot more. So what are your routines like for biohacking, or just making sure that you are in that peak state, as we kind of practiced right before we hopped on this call? Like, what are like your strategies that, or I guess strategies, more long-term tactics on a day-to-day basis that you use to make sure that you are present, you are mindful, you are practicing and doing the work? Like, what is doing the work? A lot of people hear that. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So doing the work can be a few different things. And we're having this podcast at an interesting time in my life where I've actually had a difficult summer professionally. And as far as like my own office, and I've reflected a lot on this, and I actually stopped doing a lot of the things that I was doing. And my logical side of my brain is like, no, like those things don't create the success. Like, just keep working more and you'll get the success. But actually, the things that I let go of are having a strong vision, having a lot of clarity, and reminding myself of that. One of the things that I remember doing every single day without fail was, some of you have heard this from Michael Chu, the lasagna affirmations. So really, just every day, it's like this advanced version of gratitude I'd write in the morning. I, Jakub Mysliwiec, am happy and grateful for, let's say, this brain fuel. And it's something that you have, it's there. I love brain fuel. Shout out Colton Horn. And then we'll follow it up with something that you don't have yet, but you know it's coming. So I, Jakub Mysliwiec, am happy and grateful now that my mom is 100% healthy. I remember writing that down like every single day. My mom is 100% healthy, happy, strong. And then you follow why it's called lasagna. It's because you layer it. So then you come back to what do you know that you have. So I, Jakub Mysliwiec, am happy and grateful for the opportunity to speak on this podcast with you, Carson. It's a lot of fun. And I'll layer that up with I, Jakub Mysliwiec, am happy and grateful now that our office crossed $400,000 in sales this summer. And I'm writing it down as if it's already done. And what that allows you to do, it allows you to tap into this mindset of, I was sharing this with you earlier, like needing nothing attracts everything. And I remember even talking to Logan Franke just a couple weeks ago, and he shared this quote with me. He said, Jakub, like neediness, when you feel like you need something, you need recruits, need sales, need like whatever it is, that actually gets repelled away from you. It's the law of repulsion. And Chu's talked about this recently too. And he also, Logan mentioned to me, neediness is creepiness.
Yeah.
And when we think we need something, we actually get that further repelled from us. So this summer, I was really focused on like needing our office to succeed as we built out a district team. And it was a lot harder to do as I felt like I needed it versus I was empowered to do it. And I put this like interesting pressure on myself of like, oh, I've got to do this to make sure this is good, to make sure that's good. And it was very focused on me. I was very self-absorbed subconsciously. And I would say consciously, because I was just like, all right, we got to recruit this many people. Like, yes, have goals, but like I was so tied in the number and not the impact. And I was talking to my sales manager, Xander, about this. Is like, he shared this quote with me during conversation. He said, Jakub, I'm sure you've heard this before, but some people are so poor, all they have is money. And he's like, it's kind of like what you're talking about. Some people are so, what was the quote? So some people are so, so unsuccessful, all they have is success. And he said it in a different way, but the reason why I mentioned that was because I was so focused on winning. Oh, some people are they're losing so much because they're only focused on winning.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, like that's really profound, because all I was focused on is like my office being number one and us doing this thing and us doing that thing. And I wasn't like bringing my people with me. I wasn't like serving people and like, hey guys, here's what I did and here's how you can do it. I was more of like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And so I lost touch a lot of the impact, the serving, the vision, the clarity. I hadn't looked at my journal in a little bit. And I started to do less of the habits that really drove me to do things at a higher level. So I'd say one of the tactics with a little story there is lasagna affirmations. Another one, physical kind of reset, is ice baths. There's a new studio that just opened up literally down the street. Like how much of a download is that? It
Yeah.
opened up in the middle of SC2. I'm like, I'm getting one of the first memberships. I don't even know what's in this place. I'm getting a membership. It's called Contrast. They got ice baths and then saunas, and it's a really cool place to just and do an ice bath. Don't break the chain, so I'll go every day. And if I do miss a day, don't break the chain, so I can't miss it 2 days in a row. Just a 3-minute ice bath, 38 degrees, nice little reset, and then just doing a lot of the horse stance after. Shout out to Shireen. And people always look at me in the studio and they're just like, what is this guy doing? But I'm just like, I'm tapped in. I'm like, I just feel like downloads just instantly come to me as soon as I go to the ice bath. I'm like, this is interesting.
Mm.
And it's the universe, God, whatever, you name it, just reminds me of, okay, what do I need to do to continue to lead from a powerful place? So ice baths, lasagna affirmations, and then just taking care of your physical body, taking care of your vessel. So just like what I did before the summer, the 75 hard challenge, after Ireland until Memorial Day weekend, summer 2023, my vessel was so clean, so clear, reading every day, 10 pages a day, gallon of water a day. I was learning, I was growing, 2 workouts a day. One had to be outside. They have to be 45 minutes each, taking a progress photo every day. No alcohol, no cheat meals. I have to eat clean. And just like my vessel was so clean, so clear, that vision and everything just started to happen a lot more easily. There was
Mm.
less friction, less resistance. So when I think about doing the work, those are a lot of ways to do the work. And then the deep work of the meditation, that comes when you really, it takes a little bit to learn. But just know that just like anything else, and I'm going to talk to everyone about this. If you're considering it, whatever it is, it's just like anything that else that you've done in your life that you've gotten success with, you probably weren't good at it right away. So don't give up on yourself too early. We don't give up on a kid that doesn't start walking. We just say, hey, you're going to keep getting back up until you walk. And
Yeah.
same thing goes for meditation. You're going to keep doing it until you figure it out. By the way, you're not going to have a great meditation every single time. My mom's been doing this for 7 years now. And she was the one that I was like against this kind of work. And now she's like, I don't have great meditations every day, but I know that when I do it consistently, that's when the great things happen.
Mm. Mm. And so on like something that I want to echo as well is engaged detachment. You're talking about just being too engaged with attaching yourself to those numbers this year, where you're like, my success, my goals. Like you said, yeah, it's super important to have goals, but you got to be detached from the results. You got to have that mountain peak that you're aiming towards, that you're climbing towards, but you can't be too attached to the things that happen, because there's a lot of things that are out of your control. And if you're way too attached to like, I gotta be at this one right here, I gotta be at this spot this day, you're not gonna enjoy it. You're not gonna enjoy the path. You're not gonna be present anymore. You're gonna be too attached to everything that's happening. And so I've learned engaged detachment, where you're engaged in the activity, present, but you're detached with what happens. And
Mm.
that's something that I like noted right there, that you, as you were talking about it. And I want to pivot to your mom being in meditation and really like how you got started in meditation, and what was the first thing you did to ever meditate? How did it go? And what, like, were you using an app? Was it something guided? Because I use the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. And I just like that a lot, because when I'm sitting there meditating, obviously, like, the body is the body. There's a lot of autonomy that happens in our body that we just cannot control. Like when we eat food, we're not telling our body, yeah, digest this real quick and like let's get it through like, no, it's just gonna happen. Right? When we hear, we're not turning on our ears to hear. We just hear. It's just there. When we see, we're not like, all right, let's activate the no, it's just we're seeing. And so the brain, it's just gonna think. That's what it does. That is what its function is to do, is come up with a problem and solve it, come up with a problem and solve it. And we get way too attached to our thoughts, and we associate ourselves with our thoughts way too often, when it's just the brain doing the brain thing. We are not the brain. We are a whole separate entity, a whole spirit that, like you said, is just in this vessel. And the vessel is going to do what it does. It's going to regulate blood. We're not telling our heart to beat. It's just going to regulate itself. And so the brain, just like the heart beating, is just going to spew thoughts and thoughts and thoughts to either distract us, or, they can distract us, they can build us up, whatever it is. But we are not our thoughts. And a lot of people are very stuck in their own head. And so what I like about the Waking Up app and, having a guided meditation is I sit there right there on my couch with that pillow resting on my back to give me a little lumbar support there, and lumbar support. And I'll sit there and have it on, and I know I'm going to have thoughts. I like, that's the big misconception of meditation, is like, oh, I'm just going to be thoughtless, I'm going to be totally clear. It's like, that's just not it. And if you have that expectation, you're going to be a little let down, because you're going to start having profound thoughts. You're going to have thoughts that you're like, why am I thinking this right now? And if you get too attached to them, then yeah, you're probably not going to have a great time. But if you are sitting there with engaged detachment, and you are present with all of your senses, being your, feelings, like feeling your body, sitting, resting in space, as Sam Harris says, hearing all of the sounds, smelling the smells. If you have your eyes closed, then you can still see with your eyes closed. Like it's just like a bunch of black and color, right? There is still some sort of visual that you're getting. And if you're meditating with your eyes open, like being aware of everything that's going on, all of your senses. And then the last one is the sixth sense, the thought, and being aware of the thoughts that are coming up. And just like, instead of seeing it and going like, why am I thinking that? And like judging yourself, like, why am I thinking right now? And trying too hard not to think, you're not meditating. You're trying too hard to not think. You, like, the thoughts are just going to happen. And I like to think of it as a cloud just going by. That's
Wrote
it.
that.
Cloud passing, and you're just like, wow. And being curious instead of critical of your thoughts, going like, dang, that's interesting that I'm thinking that right now, instead of like, why am I thinking this? Why? That's not a good thought. I don't want to think this. You're being way too attached to the thought now. Be detached from the thought. Let it just pass, and just notice it. Just be aware of it. Have a little humor with it. Like, dang, that's crazy. I'm like, be astounded by the thoughts. And that's when you can really be meditative, I feel, is when you let go of the thoughts. And I love, sometimes I do get attached to my thoughts when I'm meditating. And Sam Harris will, there'll be some silent moments, some silent periods for a few minutes. And then he says, and if you're lost in thought right now, come back. Just take a deep breath. Listen to your breath. And just put all of your attention and awareness on your breath. And then you do that, and you're like, okay, I'm out of my thoughts. Because you can get lost in thoughts. And that's where a lot of people like feel like they're not meditating. That's just part of the process, though. And so I know I went on a little tangent there, but I felt like that was pretty solid. Some nuggets right there. But what was your experience really getting into meditation and mindfulness? Like, I know you probably had to start before going to that Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, correct?
Totally. I've always been the person that's like, what is the hack? What is the way to do this in like an optimized way? Whether it be my health, what I could do with my business, like whatever. And for me at the time in 2020, one of my good friends, Alan Muliger, he was one of my fellow colleagues out here with Cutco, and he after Cutco started working with a company called Newcom. And Newcom is it's a software, it's a proprietary kind of thing that they have where it's a way to get into a deep meditative state in which, like, so monks, we think about it, there's a thing called um in order to become an expert at anything in your life, you got to do it for 10,000 hours, is what they say. And monks, they've meditated for 10,000 plus hours. They could get into that deep meditative state really quickly. This software basically allows you to get into that state within a span of 20 minutes. And it was an expensive investment at the time, as like, I'm a mastermind member, Essentially, you get this disc that you put on your pericardium, and your P6, and then it basically you turn on this software, and it's essentially music, but you can't hear it. The music is like an overlaid thing over it, and the frequencies are so low that we can't hear it, but our body feels it, and it will turn off your sympathetic nervous system, so your stress, fight or flight nervous system, and it will turn on your parasympathetic, your rest and digest. So what they say is 20 minutes of new calm is equal to like 2 hours of like a deep restorative sleep. And so I was like, oh, that sounds like right up my alley. So I made the investment in it. And that's what I did for a while. That's what I started to attach to my kind of definition of meditation too. But it was just one type of meditation. I remember I went to my first retreat and my only retreat at this point. I do want to go to more with Dr. Joe. And I was like, all right, mom, like I've done this before. Like, I've done this work. It's easy. I've got this app. And she's like, well, I want you to do it without the app. I was like, I don't know how to do that. So that was my first way. And a lot of the things that you shared, I've learned over the last several years of like, when you said the cloud passing by, I wrote that down because I was going to talk about that too. Like not assigning meaning to a thought, and it's just a thought. I'm sure we've all heard this before. Think about like Think and Grow Rich, Neville Goddard, Bob Proctor. Like we become what we think about.
Mm.
And if we continue to think about that one cloud that passed by, and we're not thinking about it as just a thought that passed by, and we start to assign meaning to it, we start to focus on it. And Tony says this often. He says, what we focus on grows. So if you keep focusing on that one cloud, you actually don't see everything else that's passing too. And I remember there was an exercise. Shout out Ben Skemper. He spoke at one of our conferences. He asked us to put our hands up. One hand is talks about your problems, and then the other hand is your possibilities. When you're looking at your problems, what can you not see? You can't see your possibilities. Like I can't even, like my peripheral vision can't even pick it up right now. But if I'm looking at the possibilities, I don't see the problems. So it was just a really great kind of test for me of like, okay, what is true and what's actually true, and what is a thought and what's actually something I want to focus on. So one thing that I also heard that was helpful is we have no problems when we're fully present.
Mm.
When we're fully present, and you're just listening to this, or you're just, I'm in conversation right now with Carson, and we're both in the present moment. There's nothing else going on. We're like, there's no other thought besides this present moment. And as soon as you start thinking about other thoughts, it pulls you out of the present moment, brings you to the past or the future. And those can bring up, emotions that maybe don't make you feel super positive or present. And the last things that I want to mention here is just like the concept of needing nothing attracts everything again. Just having a high intention going into like a whatever you do, whether it's a meditation, a conversation, but also a low attachment. I'm not going to attach my meaning to, oh my gosh, I hope this podcast goes really well with Carson, or else like I'm not going to be invited ever again. Like that's assigning too much attachment, versus like I'm just going to serve. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be present. I'm going to have a great flow of the conversation, and I'm going to let that guide it. That's my intention. So think about like where in your life maybe have you had too much of an attachment to something without the intention. So my intention is to serve, but am I too attached to the result? And shout out to Chu for this one, but he says, he taught us this technique or tactic of like, even if ... I can still ... So what do I mean by that is like, even if my business doesn't go well this summer, I can still breathe. And I'm removing the attachment. Even if our office doesn't perform and hit the goal that we had set for ourselves at the beginning of the year, like God still loves me. My mom loves me. Like you just ground yourself in a thought that is true. And that's what brings you back into the present moment. And you're like, great, that doesn't define me. That's not who I am. Let's go on to the next challenge. Let's go on to the next lesson, or let's reflect a little bit and then continue to grow forward.
I feel like that's so powerful for anyone competing in athletics. Like I coach a lot of wrestlers, right? Elementary school now, middle schoolers, high schoolers, any high performer, whether it's in business like you are, and I'm sure, when you were swimming competitively, like, wow, how helpful would knowing some of this have been? Just being able to remove yourself from attaching to the win, right? Like especially coaching these wrestlers, these high schoolers and really these middle schoolers too, like they are so obsessed with winning I heard this from Johnny DeJulius. He's a couple time All-American from Ohio State and runs a lot of clinics for kids and wrestling all across the country. Probably the best clinician out there, or one of the best. And he says, with wrestlers, there's sometimes a forfeit or a bye, right? Where you get the automatic W. You don't even have to compete, right? You just get your hand raised and you're like, yeah, I move on to the next round. And he was talking and saying, hey, how many of you, raise your hand if this is you, when you are waiting for your match, you got your mat assigned, and how it works in wrestling is like, yeah, you get called to a mat, you walk over to the mat, and there's a couple matches ahead of you that you're waiting for. So you're kind of bouncing, warming up, just kind of getting your mind right. You're already pretty much warmed up, or at least should be warmed up to go at that point. So now you're just like making sure, like for me, I'm trying to get my heart rate down because my body is warmed up, but I don't want my heart to tax itself out too early and gas out early. So I'm trying to lower my heart rate, breathe, focus. But it's hard because your match is coming up and you get a little nervous. And sometimes, your match gets called up, other person's not there yet. And they call them again. They call them again. And some of the people, they're like, man, I hope I get a forfeit. Because then you just get to move on. You get an easy W. Just walk into the W, get your hand raised, and that's it. Then you have to exert any energy. And there are some people that would rather have that than actually compete in the match. They're so attached and so focused on winning, they'd actually rather not even compete and get a W than rather do what you signed up for. So the focus on winning too hard actually takes away the competitiveness of just going out there to compete and just being there to be present, to be in the moment, to be a competitor. And I thought that was super powerful hearing that. So I shared it with a bunch of my young wrestlers that I coach because they're all too obsessed with winning. And it's like, no, fall in love with the process. Fall in love with being in the moment and not the result. So I thought that was pretty powerful. I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that. And so I want to pivot next into how we kind of met and champion development, because I think for everyone that's been part of the group, no matter how long it's been, like I was in for 3 years, and it was probably the best thing I've ever done. Like Cutco is great. Wrestling, okay, besides wrestling, I'd say wrestling is probably the greatest thing I've ever put myself into, but I didn't have to really invest much in wrestling or Cutco. Like I just signed up for them and I was like, cool, let's go. But Champ Dev was a scary investment for me. It's a mastermind group. For those of you that don't know, it's a small community. There's many different layers of Champ Dev and different parts, but I signed up for the Health and Wealth Academy when I was 22 years old. It was October of 2020. I had literally just finished running my first half marathon with my boy Tyler Schnabs, even though we ran it together but separately, because I ran a virtual half marathon because it was in New Mexico where he lives. And I signed up for it for my mom who had cancer. I wore a pink band. It was awesome. And then right after that, the next day, I had a call to join Champ Dev because Kubi recommended me and thought I'd be a great fit. And that's where I met Jacob at our first retreat that we had in Austin, Texas, September of 2021. So I was in there for a whole 10 months before I got to meet anybody. And yeah, it's not a cheap investment, but it is the best thing I think I've ever done for myself on a personal development level. And, Cutco and wrestling had helped me be able to receive that level of knowledge and being able to be myself around all these people. Really having those experiences. I was like, hey, I'm just going to be myself in these retreats, because I wouldn't only known 4 people really. I think it was Kuvi, Hayes, maybe just 2. I think it was only Kuvi and Hayes that I knew going into it. And it ended up being the best thing ever. And so how did you get started in Champ Dev, and what has that been like for you?
So I've been in Champ Dev since June of 2019, my second branch summer. My brother introduced me to the idea of getting a mentor that's not in the business, but was an expert in our business. That was Mike Chu. And Mike Chu's had everything that I've wanted as far as success and growth. And, he's the one that really helped me kind of ground myself and staying focused on something that was important to me. And by focusing on our health first and our physical body and eating well. My big thing for my first branch summer as a college student to my second branch summer. So from ages 20 to 21, like my first branch, I was so focused on like winning, working hard. I didn't really develop anybody to be a manager, except for maybe just like one person that just kind of I worked with, and that was Andrew. But I basically like worked myself to the bone. I didn't meal prep too much. I ate granola bars all day. I lost a lot of weight. Like it wasn't, and this was all on me. I'm not gonna, say it was anyone else's fault but my own. I'll take extreme ownership over it. But what Mike Chu and Champ Dev really helped me understand is that I cannot serve like from an empty cup. And I kept kind of serving from an empty cup over and over and over again. And I wasn't working out too much. I wasn't eating too healthy. And that's kind of what I was just like, maybe this isn't something I want to do long term. But then he really regrounded me in the fact that this is one of the greatest opportunities for me to like learn how to be that true leader I want to be by leading myself with my health and my fitness and my just own personal growth and development. That turned into us working together. After that summer, I would be on calls once a week. I had a call with him once a month. And it was a really big investment for me at the time, especially being in college. But it was something that I'm internally grateful for, and I'm still a part of the community, and I don't ever see myself not being a part of it. I met my best friends. I met Carson. Just the people. I see those people at retreats once, twice a year, and I just we just pick up right where we left off. Like there's just like an immense amount of like love and joy and gratitude for us to be in the same spaces with each other. The work that we do with one another, that deep emotional work in a space, in a container that's really a safe container where we can like feel through our emotions, our pains, our struggles, or just like all these things that might be holding us back subconsciously. We really work through those. And over the last 5 years now, got a chance to go on a bunch of retreats and visit cool destinations, do some cool things, meet some great people. A lot of decisions I made in my life, as far as like the bigger things, have come because of this community. And I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I still do one-on-one coaching with Chu, and there's a lot less of Chu to go around, since Chu is working with a lot of different organizations now. But it's an investment that I don't take lightly, and it's something that I'm eternally grateful for.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like the community is amazing. I appreciate you sharing all that. And I remember our first retreat that I was there. You and obviously you were there like a year earlier in the program than me. And my first retreat ever with Champ Dev was at Austin, Texas, 2021, where you crashed your drone. That was pretty funny. But like just the impact of the speakers we had, right? We had Jenny and
Cody
what's her
Sanchez. Cody Sanchez.
yeah, Cody Sanchez. We had Jenny and I forget, I'm blanking on her I think husband's name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know why, because she was just always involved in our group more, and he just came for the retreat and put us on a lot of real estate investing game. And then yeah, Cody Sanchez was there, and that was like, and now she's like blowing up, and she's a big deal. And Stefano,
Calvin,
yeah,
Stephanos.
Calvin and Jenny. There we go, Calvin and Jenny. And then Stephanos was there, and he led us through a very, very impactful somatic exercise. Tess was there, and we did some somatic work with Tess. And I remember just crying. Like growing up, like I was crybaby, as everyone listened to in my first podcast. And then once I started wrestling, I never cried, like ever. Like I like hardened up, toughened up to the extreme, to where like nothing phased me ever. Like went through some serious injuries and some serious heartache, and no, nothing. And then finally, like with part of this community, I felt like Jacob was saying, it was such a safe space and safe container. Like it was okay to just like release and cry. And it's so important, as men, especially, like I feel like we don't cry enough and don't release what we're holding on to that's causing us a lot of distress enough. And here we are at this retreat where there's like very successful people here that I look up to, people that I am like, oh, this is a man. You know, this is a very successful masculine person, and here they are just like bawling their eyes out right next to me. And I'm bawling too, because we are doing some deep inner work, releasing some of the trauma that we've been holding on to for a long time, maybe forever, since we've been kids. And just being able to feel so light afterwards. I like, that's the words I like to describe, is just feeling so light, like after working with Tess, and you're just like, I feel like I could take a deep breath again. Like I feel like I could literally, like, stuff has left my body that's been weighing me down through this release. And then having Shireen, I think it was the last day of that retreat where we did the most intense Wim Hof session where we ice bath. And like, I remember I posted all this on Instagram, and people like were seeing like 4 dudes in a freaking ice bath with me, and like all these other people surrounding the ice bath, like 30 something people. And we're just all in this ice bath, and like everyone's surrounding it. It looks like a cult. And like, some people are like, are you part of a cult or something? Like, you guys would not even understand like what is happening here. Like the amount of just like cohesion and family feelings here, like brothers and sisters just getting together and releasing all of this trauma and all of these negative energies that have been weighing us down. Like I can't explain it. Like it's so hard to explain to someone when they just see a picture of it, and it's like, yeah, we would go ice bath, and then horse dance, and then go into a intensive Wim Hof session, and then do it again like 3 times, to the point where on the last Wim Hof session, I am literally laying there and my body is convulsing, literally kind of like what you were saying with that lady at the Joe Dispenza retreat, where she was cackling. That was her way of releasing this energy. And I'm sitting here thinking about my cousin who was murdered 16 years ago, July 29th. I just went to his memorial with my girlfriend, and all of our family comes in Antioch, California. We do a big cookout. He was murdered on his birthday, July 29th. And this was 16 years ago. I was 10 years old when that happened. And I'll never forget it, just because that was like the first time I had experienced death. And it's always been super attached to me. You know, that's the reason why I feel like I was chosen to go to North Dakota. It was a download. That's where he was murdered. And that's the only offer I got to wrestle, was in North Dakota. His nickname was Jitty. Our mascot was the Jimmies. And his favorite colors are black and orange. Our school colors are black. And like, there's just too many downloads and synchronicities for me to be like, this is not a coincidence. Like, I'm supposed to be here. And that's always been part of me. And I feel like I've never let that go. And finally at this retreat, I'm sitting here at this very intense Wim Hof session, and I'm like, I can like see him. It was crazy. Like I started like screaming, like, why did you leave me? Like, what? Like, I didn't realize that that had affected me as a 10-year-old so much, where it still was inside of me. Like that trauma, that negativity of like looking at it from a bad angle was still inside of me. And now, since that has happened, I love going to the cemetery. Like I just went this last Monday, and all my family's there. We got all brought together, and I cried a little bit. And his dad, my uncle Dave, was like, you know, saying some good words, and we celebrate the day instead of look at it as mourning, you know. And it's like, even just that one moment in Champ Dev, like transformed the way I look at death now, and how I handle situations. Because growing, like, as you get older, you're just gonna lose people. Like that's just how it goes, and it's tough, and it's never easy, ever, you know. And I'm gonna have a guest on the podcast, my buddy Jaden, August 18th, and my buddy Rubino. And Jaden and I had a very close friend of ours that was murdered in Livermore, my hometown. And that sucked. That was super hard. It was like right after my fight, literally the night of my Muay Thai fight, he got killed. He was supposed to be at my fight, and my life like crashed hardcore after that. You know, like I was crying in bed till 5 p.m. the next day. Like I didn't want to do anything. And I had to just like get back to what I know is true. That, like, kind of what you were saying. Hey, even if this, God still loves me. Like, hey, I'm glad I get to see all my friends now to mourn my buddy's death. And then we went to the second retreat in Austin that I went to, and we had the journey afterwards, you know, the extra day, and we got to, you know, really start releasing. And then also, not even just that, we had that one, Stephanos came again, and we did that. I think we breathed in and out of our mouth for like 55 minutes, but it felt like 10. And same thing, convulsing, releasing, was thinking about my other friends that have been taken from us too early, in my opinion. And just, wow, letting go of stuff that like just no longer serves us, So I don't know. That's some of the powerful stuff I got from the retreats, and much more. I mean, much more that I can't. Jacob and I can sit here and talk for hours on stuff that we've gotten out of
We
retreats.
have before.
Yeah, and we have. This has happened already, just not recorded. And so, Jacob, like, what are some of the shining examples of, I don't know, just like the shining things from the retreats that you've taken away, like the shared retreats we've been to: Austin 2021, Destin 2022, Austin 2022, and then Colorado 2023. Like,
Mm.
what are some of those big ones that jump at you?
Yeah, I just think about the moments that you shared with like the feeling of getting really raw with people. And I just remember being next to people that I was kind of fearful of in the community, and not because I was scared of them. I was just like, wow, like they make, 5 times more money than me or 10 times more money than me. And I'm in the same room as them, and we're also just experiencing the same like cathartic release of like deep rooted emotion for something that we just keep hiding and bottling up. And one thing that I will always remember is what we resist will continue to persist. And the more we like keep bottling something up and just like putting it aside, it's going to explode. What you resist persists and persists and persists until it implodes. And that's when you can have a really, bad release in front of the wrong person, and maybe a bad argument, or a fallout happening because you just weren't able to handle what your nervous system was trying to speak to you for the longest time. And I'm really grateful to do this at a stage in my life where I'm sure many people could really benefit from this. And just after a big, raw, vulnerable release of energy, you feel lighter. And I remember hugging some people, a lot of people actually, after an experience like that. And my heart, I don't know how to explain it, but my heart just like is able to like fully breathe like in and out. My lungs like have no blockages, no resistance. I'm just able to fully like be there, and nothing else matters. What's happening at home, business, like nothing matters. I'm fully present in that space. And I really, I love the container that's been created, and just doing the Wim Hof work and just doing the work afterward allows me to really tap back into that energy. And just thinking about, wow, it's been a few years, but it's been a lot of work, and there's still so much work to do. Shireen defines it as like, imagine like living in this like beautiful home, and like all of these emotional blockages or like challenges or things that we've bottled up are like the bathrooms in this home. And what most people do is they just keep filling the bathroom, but they don't flush. And then it becomes this like this toxic dirty like release where one bathroom goes out and you got to tend to it and like put everything else aside, versus like when you do the work, it's like cleaning all of the plumbing, the sewage through the bathroom, so that you can like be able to have it as a clean vessel. And that's the analogy that I give. It's like, it's not something that's like a one and done thing either. There's layers to it, there's depth to it. And the better you get at it, the quicker you can bounce back, the more resilient you are from something like this, or the more you can heal through something. So a quote that really rings true for me right now is that the healing is in the feeling. Like we think that we can just like bottle up the anger, the frustration, and we'll just take care of it later because we're high performers and we got to work. But no, it's like, no, I got to take a moment for like 5 minutes before I go into the office today and just like really feel like, wow, like this is really painful. I can't believe that happened. And wow, I feel it on my heart. And True teaches us to stop, drop, and roll. And shout out to Tess as well. But just like stop, really feel it, drop into the motion, feel through the motion, roll through the emotion, and then ground yourself. Even if that management candidate quits, I can still be a successful manager, instead of assigning oh my gosh, I got to fix that. I need to fix this and put everything else aside. just stop, drop, and roll, feel through it. The healing's in the feeling. Knowing these tools now and strategies that allows me to really bounce back from anything that may have like held me down before, for sure.
Yeah, and you feel like that makes you a better manager and a better leader, 10,000% probably, like no doubt about it. Like even a better athlete,
Mm.
like any of my wrestlers that listen to this or anyone that competes in anything, like, yeah, this will help you become a better competitor at anything you do. You start to let go, you start to know what activates your nervous system in a negative way and start to deal with it head on with love and grace, knowing that, yeah, you're not going to be perfect at this. You're not going to win every single thing you do, but it's all about the journey, right? That climb up the mountain. And kind of like what you were saying, it's about the community. Why I love Champ Dev, like the community that Chu has fostered, the activities that we have done, amazing, that I will look back on and remember clear today. Like I like Destin, for instance, when we were working with Preston Smile.
Preston.
Like, oh my God. And then Adrian, where he was like doing the hypnotherapy. I'm like, I still use his soundtrack 2 years later to, put myself back in that state. And it's like, that was super impactful. I remember getting close with Kendall on that trip, Kendall Engelken. And, like I always like kind of what you said, I was like, man, this guy's like crushing it in business. He's like a freaking bodybuilder and he used to wrestle too. And that's how he and I were like, all right, this is a guy right here. And we like just got coffee on the last day of the retreat for like 2 hours, just chopping it up and just, like after we had already went through all of this stuff, we're like, dang, you're a cool dude. You're a cool dude too. Hell yeah, dude. We're gonna stay in contact. And what I really love is the resources that this group is so abundant with, because I'm not in Champ Dev at the moment, but I'm still in the group chat, which I highly appreciate. Like, still, I've seen other people be removed. I'm like, I'm not removed, even though I'm not active in the group as much. And just the amount of resources that is abundantly shared. No one is like, oh, this is the secret I want to keep for myself because I want to get ahead. No, like everyone's so about bringing everybody up with them. And so one of the things that helped me tremendously, Jacob, and I don't know if you know who Joe Diaz is, but I had a phone call with Joe Diaz. Gilbert Gonzalez says he's the greatest manager to ever walk through Vector ever. Won three silver cups and then went somewhere else after and has just done amazing things. So I had the blessing to have a 2-hour conversation with him on the phone a couple days ago because I reached out to him. It was his birthday. And he said, hey, call me anytime you want. And I was like, okay, I'm going to call you like right now. And so I literally called him and we had a 2-hour conversation. And he was like, hey, I got to leave to this thing. I got to start showering, getting ready for this thing at noon. And we just went past that. And it was one of the best conversations. And one thing that he mentioned was Outwitting the Devil.
Mm.
And I know that's a book that you put me on because you say you listen to it every quarter or every campaign with Cutco. And I just want to like, how did you get introduced to that book? What has that book shown light on for you? Because that has had incredible impact. And Joe Diaz told me he'd listen to it every single day. Well, when he won his silver cups, he said he was listening to that audio every single day. So yeah, what is that? What has that brought to your life?
Yeah, I mean, it started with just the space that I created with some of my friends, Tadas and Olaf, and I just think about Arnold and some of these guys that I've just got this group chat with, and we just like share value with each other. I believe that Outwitting the Devil is a book that is going to be, you won't be able to find it in libraries probably soon, and it's just like extremely powerful and in the sense that especially the audiobook, it's narrated so well that you feel like you're listening to the devil actually speak. And a lot of the key things that are talked about are just that, like, whenever, the devil is basically just really attracted to people that are drifting, people that are drifters, people that don't have the clarity in their life, people that don't have like a focus for their life. They don't really have, a mission or a plan. And he'll get involved and he'll be like, oh, you don't have, something that you're focusing on. Let me just like incorporate myself into your life and start to consume your life. And the devil really in the audiobook, especially, you can hear how like he really ensues like fear onto people. And the fear that we have is just because of the lack of like clear direction and purpose and clarity. And the best way for me to just like define this book is just listen to the first 10 minutes, just search up Outwitting the Devil audiobook on YouTube. And you're just like, wow, this is impressive. Like how well it's being narrated, but also like how quickly things just start to make sense. Like, oh wow, that's happening because of this. This is happening because of this. So just thinking about, I'd say the best. I mean, it's a beautifully like written in Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil, like just the top of the top, like all the personal growth books have pretty much been created through him and Dale Carnegie. And um, that's that's the most and least I could say at the same time without going too in detail.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about. Like it's hard to describe the book because it is so out there, but it's also so relevant. And it's like it plays a great medium for, you know, transcribing how the devil, or just as it describes in the book, negative energy, anything that consists of negative energy is the devil. Period. That takes up any space that's negative is the devil. And a lot of people, like, you know, he talks about how a lot of people think he is a physical form, you know, with horns and pitchfork and spits fire and has a serpent like tongue. And it's like, nope, he's not any of that. He is the negative energy that takes up the space in your mind, that takes up the space in all beings that have space for negative energy. And like Jacob was saying, if you're a drifter, your mind's not occupied on something definite. Definiteness in purpose is what will give you that drive, that clarity. So when you have a decision to make, you know this is the one in line with this definiteness and clarity that I have towards this vision in the future. When you're a drifter, you see all these options, you're like, I'll just take the easy one. I'll take the most comfortable one, which is like, I don't know, for easy, simple terms, like, yeah, the fast food burger. And then that leads to the next one. That leads to the next one. That leads to the next one. And all of a sudden, you're not in the right physical form that you want to be in. And all of a sudden, your mind starts going like, dang, I'm not that great. Look at me. And you start really like it spirals you down that doom loop. And that starts getting you less positive results over and over and over. Where if you have that definiteness, you know your purpose, you know exactly where you're going. You don't know exactly how you're going to get there, but at least you know where you're going. And the steps to get there will reveal themselves because you're going to have options. You're going to have different choices to make. And if you are definite, you know, oh, this is the choice that I got to make to get there. Okay, cool. But if you're a drifter, yeah, you're like, I don't even know what choice to make. And the devil's like, choose this easy one. This thing that feels good in the moment, not what will feel good and get you to your destination because you don't have one. And so what are some like main goals or destinations that you have for yourself that really helps you stay on the right path?
Yeah, that's a great way to set up that question. And just to really, before I answer that question, I just want to just some things that came from the Outwitting the Devil book itself. Some of the quotes from that book that I just had to pull up because I was like, how can we best explain this?
Yeah.
And Napoleon Hill says this. He says, I can best define the word drift by saying that people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. A drifter is one, and you might be listening to this trying to define like, who are you? A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his or her own mind. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws his or her way without making a protest or putting up a fight. He or she doesn't know what he or she wants from life and spends all of their time getting just that. And just some of the extra quotes that just really like remind me to this is a season of my life where I really feel like I got to pick the book back up or just listen to the audiobook again. It says, more gold has been mined from the minds of people than earth itself. And remember that your real wealth can be measured not by what you have, but by what you are. And we are what we are because of the vibrations of thought that we pick up and register through the stimuli of our daily environment. Just like these little things just really remind us and tap us back into that. And just going back to your question of like, what do I do when I feel like I'm either drifting or when I need to become a non-drifter? It's grounding myself in something that Shu talks to our community often about, which is um, if you want to make the present better, make your future bigger. And those moments where I've really like, had maybe a hard time in my business or hard time in my with my health or hard time with just as an example, like hard time in my business, it's like, man, like we don't have a great training class this week, or like our pop from training was a little small. If I'm like consuming that in my own thought, I'm going to start to like act in a negative way and maybe start to repel a lot of more of the success. But when I make my future bigger, when I think about how many we want to, when I think about the people in front of me that I can turn into assistant managers, branch managers, CSPs, district managers, and I think about the people in the past, like I was just looking at a Facebook post from Mike Dowd, his first like 11 demos or something. Mike Dowd, one of the greatest CSPs of our company. His dad bought a hunting knife for 66 CPO, and he had like a few returns. Like his first month, he sold 2,700 bucks. I remember his first event, Mike Dowd's first event. He spent like four figures. It was over $1,000 on the event. He ended up selling nothing. It was like a 2 or 3 day event, and he got all of his entire like fair and show kit stolen. And we just think about those moments where it's like, okay, like he could have just totally quit at that moment, but when he made his future bigger, that present moment became really great. And he's like, this is going to be a really great story to tell. So when I think about when I'm stuck in that adversity or that like pain or that frustration of the summer, I flip it's like, okay, this is not an L as in a loss. This is an L as in a beautiful lesson. Like, what am I learning? What am I really gaining from this? Wow, the summer was hard, but let's reflect on why. And let's reflect on what will I learn from this. I've been talking about this several times over the last like several weeks. Life will first hit you with the feather, then a stick, then a brick, then a truck. It's your decision on what you want to get hit with. If you don't learn from the mistake or learn from the lesson when it's a feather, the stick's coming and the stick hurts. And then if you don't learn from it after the stick, the brick, that's going to leave a mark. But then if you don't learn from it at that point, the truck, it could be like emotionally kind of really challenging to handle. So when I think about the different opportunities and the tools that I have now, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what am I learning in this moment? Hey, great. I'm not going to define this as good or bad. This is just a moment of learning. And what am I going to do to really make the future bigger so I can ground myself in the future? And that will make my present moment better.
Something I love that you said there that I always remind myself of. And I even have when I was a DM, I would share this with my reps that are going through challenging moments. Man, this is going to be such a good story. That alone feeds my soul to just persist. I'm like when I went through my tough, challenging branch story, right? Where I will like in 2019, the summer of 2019, that's like going to be its own podcast episode where I had just like the most horrendous couple years of my life. Like what kept me going as a branch manager every day, waking up to still keep competing in wrestling and training in wrestling. I had no idea what was going to be of my future. I had no idea. Like talk about very susceptible to drifting right there, where it's very unclear on the future, but I knew one thing was for sure. This is gonna be a damn good story. This is going to be a damn good story, and I am not going to let this defeat me because I need to live to tell this story. I want to, not need to, I want to be able to tell this story because I know it's going to impact people and motivate people. And if I could get through this, people can get through anything. Like I wanted to have the story. And like I would picture myself on stage talking, like telling like all these people, this is what I went through during this branch, and I still have this trophy, and I still did this, and I didn't let it stop me. I didn't win the trophy and I didn't speak on stage because it was very challenging, but I never quit. I never gave up on myself, and it propelled me into really where I am now. It helped me like learn a lot and callous my mind on like, if I can get through this, I'll be able to get through anything. Like there's nothing that will stop me except for myself. And I said this, I think I hinted at this on the first podcast, and I was like, or death. And I was like, wait, no, death will not actually stop me either. Because if I die, like I have impacted, like my being has influenced all these people and they live their lives a specific way because of even one thing I shared with them. And so my spirit lives on. It's like, so it's really only me. I'm the only one that can stop me. Even if someone killed me today, I would still be living. My physical body would be gone, but I would still be living through the influence and the energy that I've left here on earth and in the hearts and souls of people. And so, yeah, if I'm the only one that can stop me, I'm sure as hell not going to let that happen. And I'm aware of that it's only me, no one else. And it's so easy for us to blame all these other people, all of these external scenarios that hold us back, or what we think hold us back. But like you said, they're just lessons. Everything external is just a lesson. Starts with a feather, then it gets a little bit more significant. And I got hit with the truck. In 2019, I would say I got hit by the truck, and I lived and I got through it. And then, so that's one of the big things overall. Like what got me on that tangent was like, this is going to be such a cool story. I remember sharing that with a rep when I was a division office manager for Dave. She went 0 for 9 in her first 9 appointments. And luckily her name is Tamna. She got a new job too, and she used me as a reference, and that was awesome. Got to catch up with her a little bit. And it's very easy to get discouraged over 9. And she had a great attitude. And I was like, Tamna, this is going to be such a cool story. Like, this is going to be an awesome story. We're going to tell this forever. She ends up selling like 2,200 on the next appointment, ends up selling like another grand, and then like ended up being at like 6K in sales within a week. And I was like, what a cool story. And I shared that with the person that was getting a reference check from me. I was like, Tama has one of the coolest stories. And I told her this was going to be an awesome story. She is so persistent. And I told her about that, and she's like, dang, that's really cool. She got the job. I don't know if it was because of me, but Tama's awesome. So she probably got that on her own. But I love telling that story, because it's like, if you have in your mind that this thing is hard, but it's going to be such a cool story, I think you're going to get through it. So that's my tangent there.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good spot to, unfortunately, end the podcast. This has been a lot already to digest. I think it's already been like 90 minutes, and I wasn't even really keeping track of the time. But Jacob, is there anything else that you would like to give a word of advice to people, or say to someone that, could be going through it, or even like what your peak is? That's kind of how I like it. Like, what's next for you? What's next on the mountain? And what would you like to leave these people with? Or should I say lead these people with?
I'll lead everyone with just a lot of, a lot of key nuggets of what we've shared already, of just everyone's going to have tough times and tough moments. It's all relative. It's all subjective. It's what you assign meaning to. And whether you have it all or you don't have anything, whether it's a challenge that you think is not big of a challenge that really bothers you, or if it's like a huge challenge that's consuming you, just really allowing yourself to ground in the some of the tools that I've shared and Carson has shared today, of like, even if I can still, and just really jotting that down, and actually like allowing yourself to journal on what are the gifts in this? Like, what am I learning? What's the gift in this adversity? I know you probably don't want to do it right now, but if let's say had a horrible, week at work, or, a worst sales summer that you've ever had, or, maybe you've lost a loved one, or maybe you're going through some health struggle. It's like, there's a gift in all of it. And you probably don't want to hear that from me. But I'm going to encourage you to journal on it, reflect on it, because at the end of the day, it's like, it's you learning through those lessons that's really going to serve you and guide you and help you serve and guide others to create their own stories. And as far as what's next for me, just continuing to grow myself as a leader, as a man, as a son, as a future father, as a future husband, as a future CEO of my biohacking facility, just allowing myself to really grow and evolve with great people, and in a way that allows them to see more of what's happening at the same time. What I'm creating with the biohacking facility, with the supplement brand, with the nutrition side of things, with the content, the simplifying of the content, all of it's going to come in a way that is going to make it, like, the main purpose for me with all that is to serve others, because I know that there's so much information out there, but it's just sometimes really hard to digest, or it's hard to understand. And I love what you're doing with this podcast, and I really appreciate you for having me on, because at the end of the day, like, our mission, our goals is to just make that imprint on as many people as we could. And well beyond our time, this podcast will exist. Our future generations will get a chance to listen to this when we're in our 20s, and our future great grandkids, and be like, wow, like look at Carson and Jacob, like this is cool. And I think about that side of things too. So allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to really handle that adversity in a beautiful way, because at the end of the day, like that's how we're going to make a bigger impact on every single person that we see, every single person that we serve, and every single person that we meet. So thank you, Carson. I appreciate you for this platform and the community that is going to be fostered through this. And I'm excited to see what this podcast turns into. And I'll see you on your next mountain as well.
Yes, we'll see each other, man. I definitely want to see you soon. Get out to Chicago and have a visit. And I just got to say, I appreciate you, because without you, this podcast actually doesn't exist. We were talking about this a little bit before we hit record, and you shared with me a video of Brian Lubin and how he started his podcast. And because you sent that to our retreat squad group chat, I was listening to it during my lunch break, and I was like, I'm starting this right now. I've been told I should start one. I have felt like I wanted to. I just never knew how to start, and I just never even put the effort into learning how to start, because I was always too busy doing other things. And yeah, because you sent that video, this is in existence. And I never even thought about, how like this is going to be on the internet forever, and our kids and our kids' kids will be able to watch this and yeah, talk about influencing people after death when our physical bodies are gone. Like that's cool. And that's something that I never gave thought about. So I appreciate you enlightening me with that perspective of like, dang, this is bigger than I'm thinking about. This is already bigger than I could ever imagine. And I appreciate your support, brother. And yeah, you're welcome on anytime. I'm sure we'll, have another cool episode, because there's so much more to unpack. But given, attention spans, there's only so much that people are going to really, really take in, and they're probably going to listen to this a couple times. And I hope you do, listener, whoever you are, listen to this again, because your perspective is going to change a week from now, even a day from now, when you listen to this the first time. And listen to it again, just like why Jacob listens to Outwitting the Devil another time and another time and another time, because you're at a different place in your life than when you first listened to it, where you're not really receptive to some of the concepts that are brought up. And so making note of what you grasped and what you did not grasp from this episode, or anything that you consume intellectually, is probably a good thing. Like, take note. Hey, what concepts really resonated with me, and what did I receive well? And then what did I not really receive well? What was pretty vague and abstract, where I was like, whoa, this is a brand new concept. I don't even know how to digest this. Write that down too. Because then when you revisit this, you're going to be in a different place. And now your mind is going to be activated to receive that sort of content, because it's happening every day. But now that you are aware that it exists, you can now receive that in everyday life, because you didn't know that was possible before. You didn't know that was something that existed. So how are you going to receive it? Right? And just being open to receiving these concepts in your mind. I challenge you, listener, viewer, whoever you are, to be open-minded about all of these conversations. So, Jacob, with that said, do you have any last words?
Yeah, I'd like to end with this. Carson, you've got good shit to say.
Shout out to Champ Dev for, oh man, I love you, man. And so if you know, you know. If you know, so I'll probably talk about that a little bit more on a different podcast. But basically, I used to get told I talk a lot, and I do. And I used to make that be a negative, where like I talk too much, I got to stop talking, I got to shut down. And then on a Champ Dev retreat with Jacob and a lot of others, Alan, how do you say his last name? Muliger. Adam Muliger. Oh my God, I can't even remember his
Alan
name.
Muliger.
Alan Muliger was there, and we went through a session of just like empowering the things that people tried to label us as negative. And one of them was like, yeah, the biggest one for me, we wrote out a bunch of things. The biggest one was I talk too much. And that ended up transitioning from I talk too much to, but I got good shit to say. And everyone was like, this is true. You do talk a lot, but fuck, you do got some good shit to say. And so that's like really empowered me. And I appreciate you being there for that. And I appreciate all the other people that were there for that moment, because it has opened me up and allowed me to feel good enough to have a podcast where I can use my voice as a platform. So thank you, Jacob, for that. And thank you, viewer, for your dedication. Like and subscribe, and make sure that you follow Jakub. Jakub, is if you wanted to, if people wanted to find you, where could they find you on the interwebs, the socials, all that fun stuff?
Yeah. Interesting place in my life. My social media is like deactivated. It's like a weird, really weird bug, and I can't even log into it. So I've been a little bit inactive on Instagram, but I remade another. So it's Jakubs_journey. That's like my real one. Haven't been able to post there for a little bit, but my alternative right now is Jakubs.journey. I also love LinkedIn and you know, podcasts. You'll see me around. But
Yeah,
I'd
just
say
look up his name because no one else has his name.
yeah, Jakub. You can't miss it.
Yeah, excellent. What were you gonna say? I kind of cut you off there.
Oh yeah, just those platforms. And then you'll see my podcast, my facility come out in the next few years, and we'll be talking again, and we'll be back. We'll be in this little studio, and we'll grab a seat right there, and we'll have another conversation on what's next.
Yeah, well, man, the next one I'll be in person for. We'll make that a thing. We'll make it a day where or probably a weekend. I come out there to Chicago, visit you and Patty. We do a podcast in person, maybe even get a little contrast therapy in and vlog it, and then add that to the video. I don't know, make some cool content. But Jakub, I love you, brother, and we will talk very soon. And podcast listener out there, I love you too. Peace.